This is the fourth in a series of leadership training videos provided by the Appalachian Mountain Club New Hampshire Chapter Paddlers. In this video, we're going to look at leader guidelines. In the prior two, we had been looking at requirements for leaders. There are two sources of guidelines that the AMC provides for leaders. One is the AMC Leadership Requirements and Guidelines. We talked about that in the last video from the requirements point of view. Here we'll talk about it from the guidelines point of view. And also one that we haven't talked about, the AMC Outdoor Leader Handbook. So the Leadership Requirements and Guidelines, as I said, we talked about this in the last video, and I showed this slide where I highlighted requirements for leaders and requirements for activities. Now we're going to take a look at guidelines for leaders. And the first thing is that these guidelines, we feel that they're important, but we're only listing some of them in this video, so please take the time to read the entire document. As I said in the last video, it's only 9 pages long and it's available on the club website. This slide was shown in the last video as well, although there was more to it. But for guidelines, I want to talk about the words shall and must when they're found in the guidelines section of the Leadership Requirements and Guidelines or in the AMC Outdoor Leader Handbook. We believe they have less force than when they're in the requirements section, and there will be times when you should use your judgment to determine if they're appropriate or not. And I'll show you what that means. So this is right from the LRG, where it's talking about guidelines or further standards that shall be met by all club leaders. There are some instances in which it may not be possible or in the best interest of the activity for the leader to meet these standards because of the nature of the activity. So obviously the AMC in the LRG is saying use your judgment. And that will become even more clear when you look at this page where it says, in addition to the training that's required by the sponsoring club units, leaders are encouraged to attend AMC or other outdoor leadership training. So it's not a requirement, but it's in the guidelines section. So again, use your judgment. Much of the training that you could take outside of this training could be potentially reimbursed, particularly first aid and CPR training. So AMC and we agree that if you're going to lead a trip, you have to have the skills to lead that trip and ideally to exceed the skills needed to lead that trip. So if you're leading let's use whitewater as an example, and you're leading on a easy section of whitewater, your skills should be more than just being able to paddle easy whitewater successfully. If you're unfamiliar with the area that you want to lead, you should certainly take the time to familiarize yourself with that area as best you can by studying trail guides, river guides, talking with others. As a beginning leader, we strongly would discourage you from leading in places that you've never paddled before. But as you get more used to doing it, then the world opens up. You can exclude participants or potential participants for reasons such as inadequate qualifications, lack of experience, lack of skill, a number of different things, including personal incapability. If someone from the past has just not been able to get along or follow directions, they can be excluded. You cannot exclude people for reasons, that are discriminatory, but that's talking about such things as race or gender. But for you can certainly discriminate if a person doesn't have the skills. Minors can be excluded for any reasons you want. If you are going to allow minors on the trip, they have to be accompanied by a responsible adult. That doesn't have to be their parent or guardian, but their parent or guardian will need to sign off that they're giving permission for this other person to accept the responsibility for their child. During an activity, particularly if you have new people, try as a leader to incorporate them as best you can and introduce them or have them introduce themselves to the group. When you're on a trip, the AMC believes strongly in leave no trace, and there'll be a whole video on that coming up actually after this one. So as a leader, we want to be sure that we're encouraging our participants to leave no trace as well. If you're in a situation where, let's say in paddling, you get to a particular spot that is maybe harder, some of the people certainly and they'll be able to do it. Other people, this may be a little bit of a stretch from them. And if that's the case, you don't want to try to require them to do something that's beyond their ability. You can make accommodations such as helping them portage or carry the boat around the area. Obviously, we don't want people on our trips ridiculing or embarrassing other people. So as the leader, try to handle those things as best you can and try and do it discreetly so that the person who's doing it, who may not even realize they're doing it, would learn from it. If you as the leader aren't able to actually go to your trip and you can't find a qualified leader to take your place, you have to cancel the trip and notify the participants as best you can. It cannot be turned into an informal trip from AMC's point of view. Either the trip is on and it's being led by a qualified leader, or it's canceled. When you go on to lead your trip, bring with you any information that you feel is going to be necessary. Certainly, if you're on doing an ocean trip, or in a harbor, bring some maps or a map that shows the area in the harbor so you understand what obstacles you might run into. And also, the people signing up for the trips are going to be required to sign a release form of liability and also provide emergency contact information. Please bring the copy of that emergency contact information on the trip with you so that if you need to contact someone, you've got the material right there. You should designate other people to help you on the trip. In a paddling, we generally have a lead paddler and a sweep paddler. Those don't have to be the leader. In fact, I prefer to have them be someone else so that I can sort of freelance where I want to be within the group. You may have sub-leaders as well doing other parts of it. People that are assigned these roles do not have to be AMC members, and they will be covered by AMC insurance if you designated them to do such a role. And going along with that, you should only designate people to do tasks where they have the skills to do them. If you have a co-leader and the co-leader doesn't have a particular skill, but someone else on the trip does, whether they're an AMC member or not, choose the most appropriate person to perform that task. In paddling, as in hiking or biking, we want to make sure that we have a pace that's going to be comfortable for all of the people. Part of the screening process that we'll talk about, and identifying clearly on your posting what kind of trip this is, has some effect on determining the pace. But once you're on the trip, you can't leave people behind, so you may have to change the pace so that people are going to be able to keep up with that. And there may be times when you have a large group signed up for a trip, and you may want to divide it into smaller groups, which we generally call river groups, and assign people to lead those groups. The people you assign should be qualified leaders. So when I'm running a trip, if I have a large group, which with COVID has been sort of throttled back now, but I will either cut off the numbers if I can't get some co-leaders that are capable, or I will be out there trying to get other leaders to join me so that they can be assigned to lead the subgroups. And that's pretty much it from the LRG point of view. I'm back on the club website, or a snapshot of it, and in addition to the leadership requirements and guidelines and the code of conduct, here is a link to the AMC Outdoor Leader Handbook. The 2020 January edition is the most current one, and there's a lot of information in here. Here's just a quick look at the chapters that the handbook covers. And we're not going to go over all of this. As I said, there's going to be some of it will be covered in future videos, but there's a huge amount of great information in here. So it's 99 pages long. We do not expect you to read the whole document, and as I said, we'll cover some of it in future videos. That completes this video. If you have any questions or comments, we'd love to hear them. Send them in an email to paddling-leadership@amcnh.org. If it's a specific question on a slide, please indicate the number of the slide and what your comment is, and also indicate that this is Leader Training 04 for leader guidelines, because as I post more videos, it won't always become clear to me what video someone might be talking about. Thanks for watching.